So now once more give rise to bodhicitta, the wish to establish all mother sentient beings at the level of perfect enlightenment, and think to this end I will listen to this teaching and put it into practice. So we'll continue with the omniscient Longchenpa's explanation, his set of qualities. So we have people trickling in still. It needs to be, the students should be in the hall waiting for the teacher before the teacher arrives. At Dzogchen Monastery, for instance, they would blow the conch 3 times before a teaching. Before the 3rd blow of the conch, all the students must be gathered in the teaching hall, and at the 3rd conch, then the teacher would arrive. And it was not okay if the students arrived after the teacher. So maybe if I say this, people might get annoyed, but that's how it is. In any case, please be quiet. A teacher should be skillful in means, infinitely compassionate, tirelessly compassionate, be able to maintain their compassion for their students, to have tireless compassion for them, to do again and again whatever is needed to help them, whether it be teaching or scolding them or guiding them in some other way, like the way Mapa guided Milarepa. Bodhisattvas are free of all selfish aims, concerned only with the benefit of others. Likewise, the teacher should be rich in learning, have a wealth of learning of the Buddha's teachings of Sutra and Tantra. All three Dharma wheels of the Buddha's teachings, without exception, they should be perfectly learned in these. They should have a vast mindset. Of course, we're talking about Mahayana teachers here, right? Or rather, their activities should be boundless in steering beings upwards. They should be unstained by negative actions of body, speech and mind, free of all defects, all afflictions and defects. The Buddha's spiritual friends are described as guides, as you could say, as drivers, as captains. It also has this word in Tibetan, has the same sense of steering, in terms of, exactly, steering. So the one who steers the vehicle, or you could say steers a horse, if you're riding a horse, leading them left and right and forward and in whatever direction. So this is what the teacher is like. They are able to lead beings upward, as it says here, with the boundless activities. They steer beings upwards, drawing them along the path to liberation. Everyone, please be quiet. Talking during teachings, creating lots of kind of busyness and distraction. This is an obstacle. This is in Buddhist accounts of Buddhist teachings. We find accounts of the demon Garab Wangchuk, who would create all these appearances to distract and create obstacles for people's Dharma practice. So this is why I am cracking down on people speaking. To do not speak, it creates obstacles. So as a teacher, then As a teacher, then one's job is to teach the Dharma, just speak of the Dharma, and then to do what one can to lead beings towards the Dharma. So as it says here, steering beings onwards, upwards, as Yeshe Tsogyal aspires. May all connections made with me, may all my connections with sentient beings be meaningful in the sense, and may they lead beings to the Dharma. May they lead beings along the path. Unstained by negative actions of body, speech, or mind, and free of all defects. So the teacher should be like, when we say defects here, or stains, we're talking about the negative emotions of desire, anger, and ignorance. As the great master Nagarjuna said, when attachment, aversion, and ignorance are present, that is non-virtue. When attachment, aversion, and ignorance are absent, that is virtue. So it's pretty clear. When the three poisons are present, that is non-virtue. When the three poisons are absent, that is virtue. And then if we talk about virtue and non-virtue in terms of body, speech, and mind, we can talk about the 10 non-virtues and their opposite, the 10 virtues. So 3 non-virtues of body, 4 of speech, and 3 of mind, which Rinpoche mentioned, enumerated very quickly. The teacher, genuine teacher, is free of all such defects and stains, and they have perfected all qualities that fulfill their own and others' wishes. In this way, they are just like wish-granting gems. Through one's practice, through genuine practice, then naturally, automatically, all of one's own wishes and the wishes of others, wishes that align with the Dharma, are fulfilled, automatically fulfilled. Nowadays, in these degenerate times, such teachers are the same as the Buddha in person, so take them on the crown of your head with the utmost devotion. In this degenerate age rife with the 5 degenerations of lifespan, sentient being, view, emotions, and so on, nevertheless, we find teachers, some who are the same as Buddha in person. This is how we should perceive our teachers, as being the Buddha in the flesh. This is how we should perceive our root guru. But as an example of someone who really does have this perception, like I think of my father, the late Degye Rinpoche, who just his root guru was Kyabje Dujun Rinpoche. When my father would just hear Dujun Rinpoche's name, he just would say Dujun Rinpoche, and he would be overcome by faith and devotion. He would join his palms together, and he would weep. He would be overcome just at the sound and the thought of his guru, sound of his guru's name and the thought of his guru. So that is a sign or a case of someone who really sees their root guru as the Buddha in person, right? So many of you here have most of you here probably already have connections with the Jujun Tesa teachings, and from among, more particularly, connection with Seta Rinpoche, my late father Degye Rinpoche, and so on, and my uncle Agutsewa Rinpoche. So that's why I'm sometimes mentioning them and telling their stories, because you already have a Dharma connection with them and faith and pure perception in them, and of course in Kyabje Dujun Rinpoche. In the past, Kyabje Dujun Rinpoche Sangyum once said, well, you know, I think it was at one point when Kyabje Dujun Rinpoche was giving the karma transmissions in India or somewhere. And there was so many, Kyabje Dujun Rinpoche had so many disciples with great faith and devotion in him. And at one point Sangyum said, you know, Kyabje Dujun Rinpoche has so many disciples who have faith and devotion in him, profess to have faith and devotion in him. But I think from among all of them, the only one who would really, for instance, if Dujun Rinpoche told his disciples, jump off this cliff or jump off this bridge into this raging river right here and now, I think it's only Degye Rinpoche who would do it, who has that level of faith and devotion in him. So Sangyam apparently said this, and later on someone told my father. Okay, so now moving on to the second set of qualifications the Guru should have, as taught by Longchenpa. Teachers who have perfected all virtues, are of good family and have a sense of shame and decency and so on. So we're on page 13. So here we have 7 sets of qualifications, right, that the omniscient Longchenpa has presented for us. We've already been shown in the text various sets of qualifications as taught in the sutras and tantras and so on. In the Nyingma tradition, the omniscient Longchenpa is the crowning jewel, our vital crowning jewel. It's from through the blessings of Longchenpa, the teachings, blessings and visions of Longchenpa, that masters like the omniscient Jigme Lingpa and so on, including Dujum Rinpoche and so on, Rinpoche mentions several great Nyingma Lamas, that they attained accomplishment and realization. So Longchenpa is central to the Nyingma tradition. So these are his set of qualifications that we're looking at now. And in short, the Guru is so important. The Guru themselves is a crowning jewel, a priceless crowning jewel. There's nothing more valuable than encountering a genuine teacher. Nothing more profound and beneficial than encountering a genuine teacher. A genuine teacher endowed, a genuine teacher meaning a qualified teacher endowed with the qualifications that Longchenpa is setting forth here. He's setting them forth in 7 sets or 7 groups, sort of emphasizing the same crucial points again and again. As it said, important points should be repeated and stated again and again. Like for instance, this is an important point, this statement, this principle, important points should be repeated again and again. It's a bit like if a master is sending a representative off on a task, a few days before they will tell them the task that they need to perform. They'll explain everything to them beginning to end. Then before they're ready to go off, they'll explain it all to them again, and before they depart to do their work, then the master will once more meet them and explain everything to them again and again. So in the same way, important points need to be repeated again and again, and this is why we find repetition in the teachings, repetition in the commentaries and explanations. Otherwise, if you don't understand this, you might think, well, why is there so much repetition? Why are these teachers saying the same thing again and again? Well, they're saying it again and again because it's so important. So teachers who've naturally perfected all virtues are of good family. Good family meaning, so here it says family qualities comes from their being born into a royal family or similar birth. In mundane there are different. We can talk of the royal class or class of the nobles, merchants, and so on and so forth. These days, however, in these degenerate times, then the sort of so-called higher class people are the most dishonest, and the most, the high class people are not admirable at all. They are liars, they are cheats for the most part. So we're not talking about that. But in the past, in ancient times, people of a noble class, so to speak, naturally had excellent qualities, very excellent qualities. So that's what is being referred to here. Qualities like being conscientious with regards to themselves and careful to avoid anything that others would consider shameful. Their faculties are complete, so meaning their physical faculties, their eyes, ears, hearing, sight, and so on, are all complete. It's taught that it's important actually that teachers It's taught that the scriptures explain that it's important for teachers to to have all their sense faculties, their eyesight and so on intact, to be fit and physically attractive in a sense, so as to inspire ordinary people with faith in the teachings. But these days we have a kind of different context and mentality, and when encountering these statements, a lot of people think, well, this is discrimination. Buddha and Buddhist teachings are discriminating against those who are disabled, and so on. That is not the case at all. Rather, it's because some people, the same goes with gender. Some distinctions made between male and females that we found in the teachings. This is not based on discrimination, but rather in short, it was a skillful means, a way to prevent ordinary people from disparaging the teachings. Some people, if they see a teacher who is lacking an arm or legs or what have you, then they might look down on that person and by extension look down on the teachings and thereby create a lot of non-virtue for themselves. They'll actually be harming themselves, right, by disparaging the teachings and the teachers in that way. So it's in this vein that we find these statements and these instructions that a teacher should have their faculties complete, and so on and so forth. In any case, a teacher should have a sense of shame and decency, as it says here. So to reiterate all these points about the importance of good family, the importance of sense faculties and one's physical body being intact, and also some points about gender that we find in the teachings. You could say there's some cultural context there, right? So we should understand that and we should not misunderstand those points. Understand that there is some cultural context there, and the main point is that the main point is to prevent people from disparaging the teachings because of their own judgment and thereby harming themselves. Having been born into the family of the great vehicle, someone with a disposition for the great vehicle, these teachers are very loving and compassionate naturally. The attitude is vast and open, just like Dujun Lingpa. Like Dujun Lingpa, through the awakening of their deeds and training during their previous lives, they've been born with great intelligence. Someone like Trakton Dujun Lingpa, the first Dujum, who didn't undergo formal education but effortlessly learned to read and write, and then started revealing treasure teachings. Likewise with Kyabje Dujun Rinpoche, Jigje Yeshe Doje, he was able to transmit the Rinchen Teze, this vast collection of treasure teachings, at the age of 13, which is an extraordinary feat. So this is a sign of great intelligence, being born with great intelligence as a result of training from previous lives. So, for instance, Jigme Lingpa was the same. Kimmo Dazo Rinpoche said that Jigme Lingpa didn't undergo any formal education. He just learned to read and write and so on without any instruction. Actually, in the biographies of Jigme Lingpa, it says he did receive some formal instruction. But anyway, whatever the case may be, he was also someone with this natural great intelligence who developed qualities in learning effortlessly. When we talk about great intelligence, we're not talking about someone who's just undergone a formal education and become learned in the texts and developed a sharp tongue and the ability to debate and so on. We're talking about this natural, deeper natural intelligence that springs from within, from inner understanding and realization. The natural display of intelligence. You could say inner intelligence, natural display of innate intelligence. Which arises from within, as we see in the case of great masters like Dujun Lingpa and so on. Masters have few dualistic concepts and afflictive emotions, and are therefore disciplined and patient. So we can use as an example the late Dujun Rinpoche and Dilgu Khyentse Rinpoche. From having sought many different teachings, they possess numerous avenues of learning. They're naturally disciplined, they're straightforward and have no deceitful intentions. No deceitful intentions, they're completely straightforward. They're never crafty, never trying to deceive others. Just straightforward, upfront. This is how the genuine teachers are. They've abandoned ordinary evil ways and are devoted to correct conduct. And we have another quotation from the scriptures which mention these same qualities. A teacher is of noble family, they have a gentle mind, and so on. They avoid frivolous entertainments and ordinary activities. They're never restless or distracted, and they rely on solitude. All of the great masters have attained accomplishment by relying on solitude, by staying in isolated, remote places. That is how and where they attained accomplishment. As a result, genuine teachers, they love solitude, they love remote places. Now we come to the third set of qualifications as taught by Longchenpa himself. Sublime teachers freed from existence have left their homeland far behind and turned their backs on worldly ways. With little attachment to useless wealth and possessions, their own or others. They're confident in the law of cause and effect, engaging in virtue and shunning evil. These lines are so precious, no? Renouncing the things of this present life, they accomplish the greater long-term goal. Then follow them untiringly and constantly and never leave them. They've severed all connections with their native land, their homeland. As it says, to abandon one's native land is the practice of bodhisattvas. They've left their country far behind. So my grandfather, Sedo Rinpoche, left his homeland left his homeland and so on. But as it's taught, the practitioner must abandon their native land and go elsewhere. But it's important that when you go elsewhere, you don't just set up a new native land. You know, you abandon your homeland, your birthland, and then you go somewhere else and you set up the same situation, you know, with a close circle and preoccupations and all that. So maybe on the from the outside, Seju Rinpoche didn't seem to be quite like that. But when we talk about abandoning one's native land, then we're really talking about like a monastic, a renunciate, leaving their homeland, leaving their household, leaving everything behind, and just going out on their own, like Gen Riksang Rinpoche, one of the practitioners of our tradition. Recognizing the sufferings of cyclic existence, they've turned their backs on the ways of the world. Having realized how unnecessary food and riches are, they have little attachment or desire for them. You can think of someone, master like my teacher Khenpo Daze Rinpoche, who really was like this. He didn't even have like 100 yen, Chinese yen, no more than one set of clothing, no more than one mat, one sheepskin. This is how simply my teacher lived. So when I think of myself as his student, I feel so embarrassed, that I haven't been able to emulate his ways. So my teachers are all pure renunciants, like Khenpo Daze Rinpoche, Khenpo Chögyam Rinpoche. They were extraordinary renunciants. They lived so simply, in very austere conditions. So being a student of them, to live in relatively comfortable conditions as I do, it's quite embarrassing. If you're a student of a teacher who themselves lives quite comfortably, it's not too embarrassing to live comfortably yourself, right? But if it's the other way around, then what to do? Like Khenpo Daze Rinpoche, when receiving offerings, if he received offerings from the living, then he would take careful care of those and use them for, would sometimes use those for basic necessities, food and so on. But the offerings he received from the deceased, on behalf of the deceased, he would never use for his own food and so on. He made a really clear and careful distinction between the offerings he received and the offerings from the deceased. He would use only for butter lamps, for feast offerings and so on. He was so vigilant about this. Which was a great quality in and of itself. It's very difficult actually to be so constantly vigilant about how you use offerings. They see the things of this life as useless chaff and are therefore accomplishing the great long-term goal. So they cast aside all things of this life and devote themselves to the great long-term goal. They've mastered the teachings of the great vehicle and know how to use skillful methods for benefiting beings. These courageous and powerful beings have abandoned their homeland. They speak the truth and act in accord with the teachings. So they act in accord with the teachings. They live in harmony with the teachings. They put them into practice. There's no discord between the teachings and their own lifestyle, between what they teach and how they practice. And that is how it should be. Like the lion, the king of animals, a lion doesn't need to fear anyone, right? They are the king of all other animals. No one preys on a lion. The lion need not fear any other animals. Just like Nagarjuna says in his stanzas of the middle way, because I have no position, therefore I am immune to defeat. Something like that. Likewise, because these masters have realized the natural state and they abide in the natural state in reality itself, therefore they are fearless, just like the lion, the king of animals. There was a student, I missed the name, but A student down in Orissa in South India who was, I think Rinpoche said, a student of his grandfather, Seta Rinpoche. And this teacher said about the deity Shukden, the practice of Shukden. There's this, some of you might be familiar with this. Some people who practice this kind of spirit Shukden that's been refuted and kind of banned, in a sense, criticized and refuted by many teachers, including Chödrön Rinpoche and so on, and banned in some cases. Anyway, this practitioner said, if you're a practitioner of the great perfection, you should be fearless, because a lot of people were very scared of this spirit, Shukden, and those who practiced him. And this practitioner responded, well, if we're, whatever the case, if we're practicing the great perfection, there's no need to be scared of anything. That's how you should be, right? A practitioner of the great perfection who's realized the natural state, they should be fearless, completely fearless, just like it says here, just like the lion, the king of animals. So then we come to the fourth set of qualifications. So, fortunate teachers endowed with immense wisdom and so on. These are the words of Longchenpa himself, these sets of qualifications. So, some teachers are very learned but not accomplished, others are accomplished but not learned, others are learned and accomplished but maybe their conduct isn't very good or inspiring. But a perfect teacher should be endowed with all of these qualities. All of these qualities as listed by Longchenpa himself and as indeed possessed by Longchenpa himself. So they should, as it says, in them the whole sphere of knowledge in all the sciences is complete. All the sciences means all of the different topics of knowledge. Having listened and reflected extensively on the teachings, they have mastered the words and meanings of philosophical doctrines, the Buddhist teachings. Their exalted view and conduct are beyond reproach. Possessing both the scriptures and reasons, they don't invent or improvise. So it's as Rinpoche explains below, never deviating from the guidelines of scriptural authority and reasoning, they do not presume or improvise with regard to the teachings. So they teach accurately, correctly, and precisely, perfectly in line with the scriptures and with reasoning. Free of all mistakes, all inaccuracies, all deviations. They don't presume or improvise. They don't make things up, so to speak. Having examined the mental dispositions of their disciples, they introduce them to the appropriate teachings. So they can infer what sorts of teachings are most suited to their disciples, and they can teach them appropriately. So for those who are more suited to meditation, they teach them meditation. For those who need the current time to engage in, to accumulate merit and purify obscurations, they teach them those practices. So just like Buddha, who taught in response to the specific needs of individuals, likewise these teachers are skillful in means such that they can teach students in accord with their capacity, in accord with what they can give students what they need, basically. So those whom we call spiritual friends, and they avoid evil and apply themselves to virtue. They shun all non-virtue and apply themselves to virtue. They teach us the authentic Dhamma without any mistake and practice accordingly. Possessed of the 7 noble riches, they strive for enlightenment, and they introduce others to it too. So now we come to the 5th set of qualifications. We're on page 16, so reading through Longchenpa's 5th set of qualifications. So it would be very wonderful to go through actually each word of these lines, but we don't really have time to do that. So teachers who possess the blessings of the lineal transmission. Teachers who possess the lineage. Teachers like Pemosa Dongat Lingpa, who possessed all 7 lines of transmission. And there's a beautiful explanation of this by Ngondro. So it's very excellent and inspiring if we can all read Pemosa Dongat Lingpa's Khyentse Wangpo's life story and learn more about him. These teachers have delighted those who have come before them, meaning their teachers, the lineage gurus, and they hold the lineage of the accomplished ones. So they've realized the treasure in the teacher's mind and hold the instructions of the oral lineage. They've received the blessings and realization of the previous lineage gurus, just like the blessings of Garab Doje transmitting to his student. And we have this line of transmission of Garab Doje, Manju Shumichi's Shri Singha, Guru Rinpoche, and so on, down to Yeshit Sogyal, his disciples, and so on, all the way down to the present day, to Jushu Rinpoche. The blessings of realization being transferred from one mind stream to another. So this is the lineage, the lineal transmission. So all of these great masters, our lineage masters, Khyentse Jushu Rinpoche, Jojo Rinpoche, and so on, she mentioned several masters, they are all examples of such teachers who possess the lineal transmission, the realization of the lineage. And not just the great masters of the past, the previous generation, but indeed there are some extraordinary teachers just like this who are still living. One time I said to Kimbo Dasa Rinpoche, I feel like I expressed my concern to Kimbo Dasa Rinpoche once, at the moment we have these great teachers alive, but they're quite elderly, and once they've gone, then there'll be no genuine teachers left. Kimbo Dasa Rinpoche replied, "No, I don't think you need to worry about that at all. The average student might not be so great, but there will always be in the Nyingma tradition a few extraordinary, genuine teachers. So we need not worry about that." Kimbo Dasa Rinpoche said that. So now we're on page 17. As a result of their immense good fortune in the secret mantra vehicle, these masters have kept the commitments, meaning the samayas of the transmissions they have received purely. And then we have this quote from the magical display of indestructible reality. Having liberated their own mind streams, it says they're diligent in benefiting others. So this is to say that it is through liberating one's own mind stream, liberating oneself through realization, that one can then benefit others. As it said, having liberated oneself through realization, one can benefit others with compassion. But until you've gained that realization and freed yourself, you cannot actually genuinely benefit others. So in the past, Khyentse Daze Rinpoche would say about he would say about masters traveling to the West or overseas. He said, in these times there's only two masters who I think can be of genuine benefit overseas, and that is Kyabje Jushin Rinpoche and Kyabje Dilgo Khyentse Rinpoche. Why? Because they have liberated themselves through realization, and as a result they have the power to benefit others genuinely through their compassion. He would say this partly because he was invited several times to the West, but he declined those invitations. He was invited by Datang Tugu, who was one of his Dharma friends, and other people. Also by Tugu Pema Wangya, invited him to France. But Khyentse Daze Rinpoche declined. He was insistent that he was not going to the West. And he would tell our students that. He would say, these days everyone's keen to go travel and teach in the West. Don't think that I haven't gone out of lack of opportunity. I had the opportunity, but I declined to go. And then he would say that he felt it was his perspective that the only two gurus at the time who could be of genuine benefit overseas was Kyabje Jushin Rinpoche and Kyabje Dilgo Khyentse Rinpoche, for the reasons I just explained. They could be of benefit to others because they had liberated their mind streams through realization, and therefore they could benefit others through compassion. So now we arrive at the sixth set of qualifications. Compassionate teachers who guide beings along the path, have trained in bodhicitta and constantly act to benefit others, and so on. So, compassionate teachers who guide beings along the path So here we're talking about compassionate teachers who guide beings along the path. What qualities do they have? What are they like? So in the previous set of qualifications, Longchenpa was describing teachers who possess the blessings of the lineal transmission. What sort of qualities do they have, and so on. So just to clarify, each set of qualifications explains, teachers endowed with a certain quality, then what are they like? What are those qualities? So here, compassionate teachers who guide beings along the path. What are they like? They've trained in bodhicitta and so on. So we need to know what sort of qualities a so-called lama, a guru, needs to have. This is important in the West or overseas these days. A lot of people are becoming lamas, foreigners, like international students, becoming lamas and starting to teach. And of course, here there are many people, geshes, tugos, khenpos, and so on, who are teaching. So when it comes to being a teacher, it's not the case that you need someone's permission to teach. You can assess yourself. Look at the list of qualifications as laid out here, and ask yourself, do I have these qualities or not? If they're complete in you, then you're qualified to teach. If not, then you're not. It's not a matter of receiving someone's authority or permission. It's a matter of possessing these qualities or not. That's what qualifies one to be a teacher. In the past, you'll all be familiar with the late Chadra Rinpoche. So in the past, I had opportunities to meet and receive teachings from Chadra Rinpoche. But I wasn't able to take up that opportunity. If I did, then I wouldn't have been able to keep on teaching my own monks like Nyima Gyaltsen, Nyima Tsering, and so on. That activity would have, that work would have fallen to the side. Also, it's kind of difficult once you become Chadra Rinpoche's disciple. You can't travel overseas and teach overseas and so on. So in the end, I missed quite a lot of that anecdote, but in the end, Rinpoche is saying I didn't get to receive teachings from Chadra Rinpoche himself. But actually, if you think of Chadra Rinpoche, when you hear stories about Chadra Rinpoche, how he lived, how he practiced and so on, it seems he was really the embodiment of a genuine teacher, head to toe. Beginning to end, he was just the Dharma through and through, no different from the great Dzogchen master Yuko Jabdra. So Yuko Jabdra, this past master, he was not a lay practitioner. He was a bhikshu, but he had long hair. Long hair that would be tied up on his head, and one time he was sitting just at ease, drinking some yogurt, and he was just sitting there at ease, eating some yogurt outside, and a flea or something, a bug, was crawling up his face into his hair. And one of his students, kind of trying to be very polite or whatever, said, "Oh, Rinpoche, there's a bug on your face, let me take it off you," and leaned forward to do that. And Yuko Jabdra just said, "Oh, my son, let the bug of concepts go. Just let the bug of concepts go and rest at ease." So that was an instruction, right? He's saying, it was just a profound instruction. You shouldn't try and block concepts. You must not cannot block concepts. Rather, you need to let them go and let them go, liberate them, and rest in the natural state. So this is just one story, one anecdote about the great Dzogchen master Yuko Jabdra. Now, where are we in the text? Because they have trained in the precepts of the Great Vehicle, everything they do will be beneficial to others. So we're at the bottom of page 17. As their teachers' blessings have entered them, they have the ability to transform others' perceptions. They trained in the meaning of the true condition of things, and thus obtain the signs of warmth, that is, of having gained experience of the view, meditation, action and results. And so on. They know how to employ miraculous methods and can therefore gather under their influence those with wrong views. Being well versed in the means of helping others, they guide beings along the path. Now the seventh set of qualifications. Teachers who teach the ultimate essence. So the qualifications or qualities of teachers who teach the ultimate essence, the natural state. They liberate all with whom they're connected and join them to the profound path, introducing to them to the absolute body that dwells within, which is the essence of the profound path. By means of the profound enhancing practices, they increase one's experience and realization, and so on. These kingly doctors who fulfill all wishes are the most exalted of all beings, so rely on them with matchless devotion. As they know the gradation of the different vehicles, the vehicles of personal liberation, the Mahayana, the outer and inner tantras, they establish beings on the path of liberation according to their aspirations. They know how to climb the path from the bottom in stages. Their view is vast as the sky, just like a Garuda, king of birds, who has this aerial view, glides high up in the sky with an aerial view of everything, and can then dive down once they've spotted their prey. So with the view, they have this aerial view, and yet at the same time their conduct is fine as flower, their conduct is precise and appropriate. So conduct is very important, the way we conduct ourselves with our actions and our speech. The conduct of monastics, fully ordained monks, is very important. So in any case, as a practitioner, one's view should be vast as the sky, but at the same time one's conduct should be careful and appropriate. We could say as fine as flower. By means of the profound essential instructions of the path to liberation, profound essential instructions like Dujun Rinpoche's Mountain Dharma, which is called the vital instructions or naked instructions of Mountain Dharma, or Domang Yangtang Rinpoche's instructions on view, meditation, and contact. They are they're called direct instructions or naked instructions, literally red instructions, meaning naked, raw. By means of such instructions, the teachers introduce their students to directly seeing the absolute body that dwells within one when it comes to introducing, giving the introduction to the natural state. In the Treasury of Dhammadhatu by Longchenpa, there's 6 or so ways of introducing that are explained. Nevertheless, no matter how skilled a teacher is in pointing out, like a teacher like Longchenpa, who's unsurpassably skilled, as Longchenpa himself says in one of his treasuries, no matter how skilled one is, if the student isn't qualified and ripe, then there's no way you can point the natural state out to them. Like there's this one time Khenpo Punso Rinpoche was pointing out instructions to a group of students, and he gave the instructions again and again, introducing them to the nature of mind, but they just weren't getting it. Time and time again he gave the instructions, but they just weren't getting it. And at the end, just out of kind of, you could say desperation, but for lack of anything else, he just said to them, what to do. You need to purify your obscurations, recite the Mani Mantra, because they just weren't ripe yet for receiving the pointing out instructions. So one time Dongsen Chinanoma Rinpoche was teaching in Jopati, I think Rinpoche said, Jopati by the Bodhana Stupa. He taught starting in the evening all the way into the early hours of the morning, 2 a.m. or so. Direct, raw instructions pointing out the nature of mind, pointing it out directly and vividly. It was extraordinary, profound, direct teachings Rinpoche gave. And I thought, wow, we've all really had the feeling that we had recognized the nature of mind. That all of us had recognized the nature of mind and got it. But the next morning, when we met again, there were a lot of people saying, what was Rinpoche saying last night? I don't really remember. What was he talking about? What an incredible shame. Unbelievable, right? You can have a perfect teacher like that, giving such raw, detailed, profound, direct instructions. But if we from our own side have not purified our obscurations and gathered enough merit, we won't be ripe, we won't be open to receiving those instructions. On the other hand, you can have people who might not have any formal learning, might not have studied the scriptures or philosophy or no ritual practice, maybe kind of quite simple elderly people, but who've purified their obscurations and have enough merit to receive the pointing out instructions and actually recognize the natural state, and then die. When they die, they show signs of accomplishment, like staying in meditation. There are many accounts of people, even these days, who can recognize and practice like that, in spite of any lack of formal education. So it just shows the point is that when it comes to recognizing the nature of mind, it's purification and merit, purification and accumulation that are the vital things. Today is Guru Rinpoche Day, and this afternoon we will do puja. Well, every day you're doing puja, but this afternoon, being Guru Rinpoche Day, I will also be joining the puja. And really, as you all know, there are countless Buddhas and Bodhisattvas. All of them are equal in being enlightened beings and endowed with great blessings and qualities. But in this degenerate time, in this specific degenerate age, there is no one of greater blessings and greater benefit and power of blessings for us than Guru Rinpoche. So, as practitioners, we need to gather the accumulations, we need to purify our obscurations, and practicing is the way to do that. So, practicing like we will practice this afternoon. Myself, I'm not able to attend the practice sessions every afternoon. I need to spend time preparing for the teachings every day, and that takes me quite some time. So I'm not able to attend every day, but as I said, I will be attending today because it's Guru Rinpoche Day. Even though I'm not attending every day, it's very important for you to attend if you can. It's a way to gather merit, purify obscurations, and this is beneficial for all of us. It will also help make all of the donations made by the sponsors who've made this event possible, make their donations and effort meaningful and fruitful. So as they have consummate realization, they give rise in their disciples to the experience and realization of the way things truly are. There's a wonderful story wonderful story about a Dzogchen Khenpo from Dzogchen Shedra in eastern Tibet, who was then sent by his guru to Do Khyentse Eshe Dorje and introduced to the nature of mind. We won't tell that story right now. As they reach the very pinnacle of realization, they can liberate every kind of mind stream. Such is the power and ability of qualified realized gurus. Thanks to the kindness of my two root gurus, Khenpo Daze Rinpoche and Khenpo Chubukyi Rinpoche, I've heard many wonderful stories about great masters. masters of the past, and thankfully being able to retain those and remember those. Really, stories and anecdotes about past masters are so beneficial and blessed, right? Very important. Transforming everything into the path, and adept at liberating others' minds, skillful in destroying demons and deviations. Such are the qualities of that unsurpassed essential being, the teacher. So a teacher endowed with these 7 sets of qualifications. Now it's very clear to us, right, what a genuine teacher is like, what sort of qualities they should have. Okay, so we've talked now about what a qualified teacher is like. Now, what is the opposite of a qualified teacher? The opposite of a qualified teacher, a fault-ridden spiritual friend. A fault-ridden friend, a perverse spiritual friend who leads one onto the wrong path, leads one astray, away from the path of liberation. What are they like? We need to be aware of what they're like so we can avoid them. So to this end, the text explains, lacking in compassion, short-tempered and aggressive, conceited, full of attachment, undisciplined and boastful, do not follow them. So a teacher who lacks loving kindness, compassion and bodhicitta, such a teacher lacking bodhicitta is rotten, completely rotten. A teacher who has loving kindness, compassion and bodhicitta, well, they are qualified to be a teacher. But someone lacking bodhicitta, they are not. In the past, the Lord Atisha was approached by someone who held out their hand. One of his main students, held out his hand and said, "Please lower my hand and bless my hand." I missed a bit of the story, but in response, Lord Atisha said, the most important thing is to have bodhicitta. Without bodhicitta, one will fall to the lower realms. So bodhicitta is so important, practice is so important. Recently, I was given the message that 9 students were going off to 3-year retreat, and I was so happy. I thought, how wonderful, that was better news for me than someone giving me 900,000 rupees, hearing that 9 students were going off to do a 3-year retreat. But then I thought, 3-year retreat itself is not always beneficial. So then I sent some advice to make sure that retreat practice was going to be beneficial. I said they must study the words of my perfect teacher, they must read the life stories of the lineage masters, and so on. And not think that just completing a 3-year retreat qualifies them as a teacher. It's possible that one stays on 3-year retreat, but still remains confused. One lacks realization, lacks experience, lacks realization of the natural state. It's very possible that one can complete a 3-year retreat but not actually develop. And many of you here will have completed 3-year retreats and also completed a lot of formal study. But if that study and practice hasn't touched you and transformed you and helped you develop experience and realization, well then, then there's not much benefit. But if you engage in study, and likewise practice, and you change a bit, you transform, your negative emotions decrease, then whether you be whichever tradition you're following, Gelug, Sakya, Kagyu, Nyingma, that is beneficial, that is good, right? The point is that our study and practice needs to tame our minds and reduce our negative emotions. Then there is beneficial, then that means our study and practice is fruitful, meaningful, and the blessings will enter us. Otherwise, no matter how much formal study and practice we seem to be engaging in, if that transformation isn't taking place, then there's no benefit there. Nothing special about that. So a bad teacher, an unfit teacher is someone lacking in compassion, short-tempered and aggressive, conceited, full of attachment. There's nothing particularly special about a teacher who is put up on a very high throne and has a huge number of students, a great following. If they lack compassion, if they have these faults, there's nothing. If they're lacking compassion and they have these faults, if they're still tied up with mundane concerns, seeking material wealth and fame and status and so on, then they should be avoided. The fact that they have hundreds of students, thousands of students, doesn't mean anything. They should still be avoided. You also shouldn't criticize them, because by criticizing others, you're just accumulating negative karma that will lead you to rebirth in the lower realms. So, nevertheless, you should quietly, skillfully avoid those teachers, and if they're teachers you've already made connections with, then you should skillfully, quietly, without criticizing them, step away and distance yourself. Make confessions and distance yourself. At the same time, if it's a case where you're following a genuine teacher but you damage your commitments with them, you transgress your samaya with them, well then what to do? Then you should go to them, you should make a confession, confess your mistakes and your transgressed samaya, and then once more you should receive empowerment from them. And by making confession and receiving empowerment from them, then you can mend your samaya with them, completely mend that samaya. So now we're on page 20. However many such teachers, though they teach a semblance of Dharma, it's not Dharma and they are frauds. Such teachers are like heaps of filth. However many flies they may attract as disciples, keep well away. They lead those who have faith in them along wrong paths towards the lower realms. So those who desire the path to liberation should never follow them. So, such teachers who are tied up with the afflictions, with mundane preoccupations, they should be avoided. They will not benefit one, they will just harm one, so they should be avoided and kept. One should keep away from them. They criticize all teachings and individuals different from theirs. Some people just can never say anything positive. They're told, oh, so-and-so is a Kempo, and immediately they'll say something negative. So-and-so is a Lama, immediately they'll say something critical. There are some people like that who they can never say anything positive, never find anything positive to say. They're just always criticizing others. That is a terrible quality. Even if we cannot feel faith in someone, in a teacher or an individual, we should keep our mouth closed and not criticize. There's no need and no benefit in criticizing others. If we can't, if we struggle to have faith in someone, then we should just keep our mouth closed, not say anything, and just keep our distance. That's the way to deal with it, not to criticize others. It's important to have faith and pure perception. Faith and pure perception towards the teachers, towards the practitioners, towards the monastics, the Sangha. As Buddha himself said, through respecting and honoring the Sangha, the teachings of Buddha will remain in this world. So ideally, one should cultivate faith and pure perception in all of the teachers and students, the Sangha. But if we're just unable to do that, then we should, by all means, avoid criticizing others. We should just keep quiet and keep our distance from those that we struggle to have faith in. Although they're full of clever talk that sounds like Dharma, in fact they've confused the words and the meaning without any beneficial effect on their own minds, and they are thus known as frauds. Even if they attract a large following of disciples with little merit, like flies around a dunghill, like flies gathered around shit, they'll lead those who seek liberation and have faith in them to the lower realms. So these sorts of false teachers might gather a large following of disciples, but they'll be disciples with very little merit. And those disciples will be led to the lower realms. For this reason, you must keep well away from such teachers. Why? Because they will lead you to the lower realms. They will lead you astray, they'll lead you to the lower realms. It's a bit like the blind leading the blind. If the blind were to try leading the blind, both would inevitably end up falling over a cliff. The same is true of conceited fools, expounding dry words, which they boast as being the Dharma. Just dry words cannot help others, cannot benefit others. First of all, one needs to train and tame one's own mind, to transform one's own mind, to actually practice oneself, apply oneself to this is how one needs to start, to turn in, apply one's attention to oneself, to transforming oneself, to practicing oneself, and, for instance, looking after one's own parents with love and affection. This is how we need to proceed, right, as practitioners. So instead of liberating their minds, the same is true of conceited fools expounding dry words. Instead of liberating their minds, they'll bind them tighter with the fetters of wrong views and turn them back from the path of liberation. Ordinary enemies may deprive us of our lives and throw away our bodies, but that's all. They don't make us fall into the lower realms. So ordinary enemies, the worst they can do to us is kill us and throw away our bodies this life, but they cannot make us fall into the lower realms. False teachers, however, can. They can cause us much greater long-term damage. Sublime teachers who are rid of all faults just described and who possess all the right qualities are, because of the times, meaning because of the degeneration of the current times, very hard to find. Even if they should happen to come across such teachers for just a little while, sentient beings with impure perceptions see faults in them, as it happened many times. Starting with Devadatta, who saw faults in the Bhagavan. Buddha's cousin Devadatta, who saw faults even in Buddha Shakyamuni as a result of his own negative karma. So it's important that whatever we practice, whatever study and practice we engage in, that it serves as a remedy for our afflictions, that it actually functions as a remedy for our afflictions, and it helps us to transform. It's important that we can step by step tame and transform ourselves, that we can avoid harming others, and that we can do what we can, even in small ways, to benefit others. This is really important. This is so important. As Kimbodaza Rinpoche said, when engaging in the teachings, we should be like a piece of white fabric being soaked in red dye. The dye should penetrate us, so we're completely transformed like a piece of white cloth dyed red. At the very least, if we can't be completely dyed red, we should at least be touched, right? At least gain a red hue, so to speak. If, however, we receive teachings and we supposedly practice and so on, but we remain unchanged, then there is really no use. That is not the point of the Dharma. The point of the Dharma is to change, to transform. We need to let ourselves be changed by the Dharma. So, a lot of us, including myself, we have met many teachers, followed many teachers, received great wealths of teachings, and studied and practiced and so on. All of that needs to lead to just one thing, to personal transformation. If it doesn't, if it hasn't, well then all of our efforts have been futile. So we need to really make sure that we let the teachings transform us. And even if you are a tuku, a lama, recognized as a tuku, you still need to practice on the path to engage in accumulation and obscuration. Often people will say, lay students or worldly people might say, oh, well, us, we're ordinary people, so we need to practice and accumulate merit and purify obscurations. But you are a tuku. You're special. You don't need to practice on the path like this. But to say things like this to young tukus is actually can be very damaging. No matter who you are, so in short, no matter who you are, tukus included, you need to apply yourself to the path, to accumulation, to accumulation and purification. And we need to live and act in accord with the Dharma. Those who are running monasteries, living in monasteries, running and managing monasteries, we need to be very careful that we do all of that in accord with the Dharma. Not these days, as you see often monasteries setting up hotels and money-making businesses. Is that really in accord with the Dharma, for instance, in accord with Patrul Rinpoche's advice? The point is that so, in short, we need to act in accord with the Dharma, and in the context of those who are living and managing monasteries, it's extremely important that all of that work is done in accord with the Dharma. Just, for instance, in accord with Patrul Rinpoche's advice in the words of my perfect teacher. We cannot mix worldly mundane activities like business and money making with the Dharma. It's not the work of monasteries to be making money and engaging in these sort of mundane activities. It's to do so would be in complete discord with Patrul Rinpoche's words, with the teachings themselves. For instance, up at the monastery, some people have suggested, oh, we could do this and that, hire out our jeeps or our mules and make some money for the monastery. Well, I've declined, I've refused to do that up till now, because it is completely inappropriate for a monastery to be engaging in business like that, making money from their property, making money from other people like that. It's totally inappropriate. So anyway, I mention these points because there are probably many here who are involved in monastery management and so on. And I feel these points are important, so I want to just mention them here so you can reflect on them if they're relevant to you. So lamas should not be engaged in business. If they have, lamas should not be practicing business, money making. So moreover, most people nowadays have the same store of negative deeds and misfortune, and so they perceive faults as good qualities and good qualities as faults. In particular, with regard to giving the profound teachings, teachers who have no realization cannot make the ultimate experience and realization develop in the disciples' mind stream. We should therefore take this point as a basis and regard a teacher who has most of the right qualities as equal to the Buddha. So teachers who have no realization cannot make the ultimate experience and realization develop in their disciples' mind streams. We should therefore take this point as a basis and regard a teacher who has most of the right qualities as equal of the Buddha. So, if we encounter a teacher who has most of these qualities, then we should regard them as equal to the Buddha. The reason for considering even those in whom 6 of the above sets of qualities are complete and who have most of the right qualities as sublime beings, and for following them is described in the approach to the absolute truth. Because of the age of strife, teachers have a mixture of faults and virtues. There are none with no negative aspects at all. Having carefully checked those who have more qualities, disciples should put their trust in them. So today we'll leave it here. I haven't covered as many pages as I had hoped to, or as I will aim to in the coming days, but we will stop here and not run over time because we are doing puja this afternoon. It's the 10th day and I don't want to tire everyone out. And in the coming days I'll aim to cover around 10 pages each day, and I think we'll be able to get through it. So in the coming days we might sometimes continue up till noon, but today we'll stop here at 11:30. So as I've said, today is the 10th lunar day. It is Guru Rinpoche Day. And as I mentioned the other day, on the 8th lunar day, when we began this program, it was Dujun Rinpoche's Parinirvana anniversary. Later this month, it will be Kyabje Dujun Rinpoche Dirje Doje's Parinirvana anniversary. And today is the 10th day, Guru Rinpoche Day. So we are incredibly fortunate. It's a very auspicious time. If we make use of these auspicious occasions to make offerings, light lamps, make supplications and so on, then we can really accumulate a lot of merit, purify our negativity and really reap a lot of benefit. So now we dedicate the merit and stop here for today. Bye.